Yeah. Okay. So today we are tackling like a quite a interesting topic on the Navamsh. Let me just. Is everybody familiar with this Navamsh?
I am.
Okay. Okay. So essentially, the D9 chart. We have, I should really give an introduction, but I'll probably do it at a later stage. That there are in Vedic 16 divisional charts, 15, and then including the D1, it's 16. And that maps into the tithis, the phases of the moon, which is that's why also all of them are called the Shodasha Vargas. Shodasha in Sanskrit literally means the 16 divisional charts, or 16. And Amsha is nothing but Varga or charts, the divisional chart. And when we come to the Navamsh, it's one of the most important. It is one of the most seen. You cannot see the Rashi chart without seeing the Navamsh. And the other chart, and we will come to that, the other charts which we always see is the D3 and the D60, the Shashtiyamsha, which tells you all about the karmas. But the D9 particularly has a very important place in Jyotish. So it literally, when you split up the word Navamsh, it literally means Nava and Amsha, which is to share or to divide up, which is a part. So the Amsha is nothing but like a divisional part or a chart in our context, and Nava is nothing but nine. And Varamira also talks about the Nava Bhaga, which is nothing but the Navamsh chart. So when we see the Navamsh chart, it really means that we are dividing in nine parts. Now, what does it mean? Like, what are we dividing? When we look at the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, he has referred to the Navamshe, the Navamamshe Kalatranam, which literally means that the Navamamsha is about the Kalatras. Kalatra, the word Kalatra in Sanskrit means the hips. If you make it like quite technical, and it also refers to the activities and pleasures regarding that zone of our body. Um, and all in equal measure, he also talks about that it is also the bhagyamsha, which is also Jatak Parijata also refers to it as Bhagyamsha, which is Bhagya. Again, Bhagya means destiny or fortune, which is nothing but the ninth house. And it is also referred to as Dharma or Dharmamsha, which is nothing. Again, Dharma is means the ninth house. The house, ninth house is referred to as the house of Dharma. So you see, there is a lot is going on regarding the Navamsh, as we will progress, because there are many, a plethora of things that we can see just from the Navamsh. It is really one of the key charts after the D1. Oops. Now here we are, what specific things are we looking at among the Navamsh chart? We are dissecting it's akin to dissecting our ninth house in the Rashi chart. And so the things that we come up with is all the pending karmas for immediate past lifetimes, which is nothing but prarabdha karma. Now, prarabdha can also mean, literally in Sanskrit, it can also mean like things that good karma and negative karma that we can enjoy for the present lifetime. So now, not everything karmically or karmas, the word means negative. It can also mean something really positive too, which we are going to take great pleasure in for this lifetime. Now, it is, and that is why when we talk about, as Parashara says, Kalatra, Kalatra also means, like the portion below the hips and hips region. And often we can see then our our sexual tendencies. And when we talk about sexuality, we of course need a partner, and that is also another reason why he's referring to as a spouse and long term relationships for seeing this chart, to see long term marriages and spousal relationships, or like even if you're not technically married, but if you are in a long term relationships and living together, then it is we see the D9 chart. Then we also see the person's abilities and talents that are coming from this chart, especially like the 10th house in the D9. We often see for what the person is going to do in life. Of course we'll see the shamsha, which is again the for seeing what we are going to be doing, our profession. But the 10th house in the D9 chart has got a lot of importance is given. Then this chart, the D9 chart also offers understanding for what one is born for. That means what is the final, what are the specific karmas, which planets are carrying those karmas that he has to do this lifetime, without which he cannot exit this planet. And so that is also seen from the D9. We also see whether the person is going to get moksha, or is he moving towards liberation or a spiritual enlightenment of some kind, towards it, whether this can be achieved. All of that is seen from this chart. There is no other chart we see. We have to verify it from this chart, you know and then we also see how you're going to sustain ourselves materially, and sort of using our talents and abilities. That also we will see from this chart. So it is a very, very multi dimensional chart, Navamsh. It's not like, oh, it's just about marriage. No, it's not just about that. So there are many, many levels to Navamsh. Yeah. So, is anybody got any questions? No? Okay. So the technique for Navamsh is very simple, okay? But we have to understand the significance of nine, the nine divisions, Nava, which is nothing but we divide each of the signs into nine divisions. If we just do a little bit of math, if we do like divide each of the signs, that means the 12 signs into nine, we get 108 portions, which are nothing but the padas or sections, and these are nothing but they map into the nakshatras. Now you may say, oh, but there is only 27 nakshatras. So let's see what is going on. What suddenly now we are talking about nakshatras here? Oh my God. So let's do, like I said, a little bit of math, and I have to introduce you to the concept of nakshatras, but because it is very, very pertinent and relevant. Because bear in mind that when we talk about the Navamsh, we also are talking in tandem with the moon nakshatras, the nakshatras. So that's why often the moon becomes a key player in the Navamsh chart. And it is also one of the key karakas for the chart. So that's why this is important, the nakshatras and how it gets mapped in. Now the 12 signs is nothing but each of them is 30 degrees, and if we multiply that, we get 360 degrees. We know the whole of the bha chakra, or the whole zodiac, which is called the bha chakra, is 360 degrees. And if we take each of these portions, like divide each of the signs into 9, we get 108. Now, the 108, it refers to nothing but the 27 nakshatras, and each of the nakshatra is each nakshatra has is further divided into four divisions, or the padas it is called, or the portions. And if we multiply that, we get the 108. That's why there are 108 unique positions. So it is not just about being in a particular fixed star, it's also in what pada of the fixed star it falls in. So there is a very, very fine delineation within the nakshatras. As you see, it is not just about the signs. The signs are the overseer lord of the sign, as we have learned, is Surya, the sun. And for the nakshatras, it is the moon. And so suddenly we now are talking about a connection between these two. So of course it is like coming together of the sun and moon, and that is why it is the key chart, and it has such utter importance in terms of relationships, because we are talking about the moon here as well. Okay, so now, for example, let's take Aries. This is the Bha Chakra, and here inside, and here these are the outer nakshatras. I suggest those people who are not familiar with the nakshatras, they go on the website, or they can go on the my website. There are quite a few. I've given a lot of sounds, the mantras for various nakshatras. So there is a vast amount of information there. So please feel free to browse it and get a better understanding. But I'm going to do a quick sort of um, a quick sort of recap on not all the nakshatras, but I'm just going to go quickly into it. Now, Aries, when we talk of this first sign, Aries, it gets divided into 9 padas, or sections, and it spans 2 nakshatras, which is 8 padas. So now, how do we get all these figures? Let's have a look now. This is kind of like a typical nakshatra pada in the Rashi chart. So if we let's take Aries, okay? Now Aries gets divided, the 30 degrees gets divided into 2 and a bit nakshatra. So that means each nakshatra is nothing but about approximately 13.3 or 4 degrees, 13 degrees roughly of each 13.2 of each of degrees of the sign. And so that means, and within that 13 we then further subdivide it, and we get 3.2. So each pada gets 3.2 degrees assigned to it. So you see, that is very, very crucial to understand that. So that means, let's say Aries has got 2 and 1 pada of Kritika. So if we see here, Mesha has got Ashwini, Bharani, and Kritika. Ashwini nakshatra spans from 0 degrees to 13 degrees 20. Bharani is 13 to 2640. That means 2 nakshatras equal to 26 degrees 40 minutes of the Aries degrees. Now, then what happens to the balance 3 point something? Kritika comes into play. It gives and it contributes 3.2. So Kritika's first pada then contributes to the Aries, and then Kritika moves after that to Taurus. Okay, so that is how we see the nakshatra padas. And so each of these, like I said, has got a particular. So Ashwini has got 4 padas, which are each, as you can see here, and they are the sounds associated with that. This we did in a few classes. I think in November last year we did each of the sounds association with each of the nakshatra pada for the each of the sign. So so each of these then get further subdivided into 1, 2, 3, 4. I've written here pada 1, pada 2, pada 3, and pada 4, which is nothing but 3.2 degrees. Okay. And then we have one pada from Kritika, which falls in Aries, and the rest three padas fall in Taurus. So you see, that is the composition of Mesha. So and this is in Ashwini, at where sun exalts. So Ashwini becomes very, very important, and the ruler is Ketu. And that is why the starting point of the zodiac is the Ashwini nakshatra. So as we see that, this is how we see the nakshatra delineation, that is for each of the similarly we go for Taurus. Okay. Now here, if we see the Kritika, this is the Taurus. This is again Taurus, sign of Taurus, the second Rashi. Now this spans over Kritika, Rohini, and Mrigashira. So Kritika has got literally the three padas in Taurus, and then we have Rohini, and then we have Mrigashira. One pada of Mrigashira falls under Taurus. So so again we have the similar situation as we had in Aries. So two nakshatras and a bit pada of the next one, which is Mrigashira, which is in Taurus, and then we continue with Gemini, and similarly with Gemini, and so on and so forth. So for again for Gemini, it is Mrigashira, one pada, and Ardra, all four padas, and Punarvasu, one first, second, and third. And the last pada of Punarvasu falls in Cancer. And again, Cancer is, the fourth pada of Punarvasu, and the four of Ashlesha, and four of Pushya. So is everything kind of, are you understanding what I'm saying here? Is everybody clear on that? Because this is really important to know that when we come to
Yes.
rectification of charts. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
so it's always one pada, four pada, three pada, right?
Yes. No, sometimes there is a variation, but yeah, that is typically the general rule of thumb. That's why I suggest you see all the degrees of it, and map it and do all the padas yourself. So if you go on my website, I haven't worked out the padas, but if you have the sound, the chakra for the sound, I should have included it, but I will put it in the Telegram group. But because this sounds are really important, each of these sounds are very, very important, and they map to each of the padas. Okay. So that's why if you study them, it will get a lot easier from the perspective of sound. And I would strongly encourage you. So for example, if you have a name, let's say starting from Lee, okay, let's say your name is Liana, okay, and let's say Saturn is, and your Saturn is transiting Bharani, the first pada, okay. So this, it will affect you because your sound is Liana. So the first syllable is Li. It falls under the first pada of Bharani. So that is going to get activated. So you may encounter some issues, some problems there. You see, that is how you often map. That's why the sound is highly, highly important. Yeah. And that is how we derive, not derive, but we kind of map the padas, and the relevance of the padas, bring it into the nakshatras, and of course the rashis. Yeah, does that help you answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I have one other question. Like how important is it if my parents wrote down, gave me the right minute, does that have an impact on that? So if they said, if they missed for maybe half an hour, am I in a different nakshatra then, or pada, or
Oh, totally. Because remember, the each pada is 3.2
yeah,
degrees.
yeah,
So it
okay.
changes, the pada changes, and each of the padas has a certain ruler, right?
So like what like 5 minutes already put you in another pada?
Pada, yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
You
That
know, so if you move the degrees, then it will. I mean, experiment and see, that is how we would rectify the chart as well, so that becomes very important. As you can see, this is a little snippet I'm giving you just for Aries. Now this is, I'm digressing a bit. It's not relevant, directly relevant, but you will realize that you can easily map this. For example, Ashwini, this is for Aries, right? You can see Aries here, the symbol of Aries. Ashwini, Bharani, and one pada of Kritika. Now here, so these are all the four padas of Kritika, and they rule, these are the rulership. So the first pada, let's say, of Kritika is, it falls in Aries, and that's why the first pada is the ruler. It falls in Sagittarius, and the ruler is Jupiter. So similarly, for the sign Aries, Ashwini, the first pada of Ashwini will always be Aries. The second pada, sorry, the first pada of Bharani will always be a fire sign, which is Leo. And the third fire is Sagittarius, the triplicity, which is falls under Kritika. So we are still talking about Aries. So does that make it clear? So similarly, we will be seeing the earth sign. So for example, Taurus is an earth sign. So the first pada in the nakshatra of Kritika will always map into an earth sign. Is that clear?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. And as you can see, it is Capricorn. And now I will tell you later the relevance of what that means. Yeah. Okay, let's move forward. Now, again, the Navamsha is the bridge. It's between the zodiac and the stars and the moon, and deeper reason and connection why the Navamsh chart is so closely related to partnerships and marriage. So again, like here we see that Ashwini, Mula, all these number of years are given, and this is to do with the nakshatra lords. This is, I'm just a little bit introducing you. This is not quite we are not there yet regarding the Vimshottari Dasha, but here here we can see that Ketu rules 7 years, Venus rules 20, and all the nakshatras to do with Bharani, Purva Falguni, and Purva Ashada, which are Venus ruled nakshatras, have a rulership of 20 years. And that is how we derive the Vimshotri Dasha. So if let's say you have moon in Bharani, then, in let's say the first pada, then it will be ruled by Venus, and your Vimshotri Dasha will begin at the age of 0, or how much ever it has lapsed, and it will continue for 20 years. Yeah. So this is like a simplistic version of um, telling you the Vimshotri Dasha and the starting point of that. Okay. Is everybody clear on this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now let's see how do we calculate. We already went through this, that the Aries gets divided into 9 sections of roughly 3 degrees and 20 minutes each. Okay. And which is nothing but equal to a pada from when we look at it from the point of nakshatra. Okay. Now, this is how we derive. So, for example, in your Rashi chart, we take 3 degrees, okay? Your rising sign may fall within these degrees and it may be in a certain sign. So, we just map it, see the table. Let's say if you are, say, Scorpio, and you are in the first 3 degrees, then it will be Cancer Navamsha. So your rising sign will be Cancer. That's mine, by the way. So this is an excellent tool for rectification because you see, there is a big difference between these, as you can see, 3 degrees and the next 3 degrees. If you are in Scorpio Lagna, and if you have, let's say, 3.4 or 5 degrees of Scorpio, then it will go into Leo rising sign, your D9, Leo Navamsha. The terminology we use is Leo Navamsh. Okay, that is how we say it. So you see, this is a fantastic tool for rectification because often the Cancer Navamsha and Leo Navamsha is two different, completely two different things. They activate a different part of your chart. They have a different meaning totally. Yeah. So is so far any questions?
Yes, Miss Sona. I'm a bit confused about how to calculate, if I'm thinking about my Navansha. So I think I'm around 6 degrees something Scorpio. So my D9 should be Leo.
Yes, but it may be 6 degrees and 45 or 50 minutes. And then it may
Yeah,
be.
but I'm Sagittarius, so it's very strange.
What do you mean, Sagittarius?
No, my Lagna in my D9 ascendant, becomes Sagittarius. So I didn't get probably the relationship you said that you are Scorpio Lagna and your Navansha is Cancer.
Yeah.
So because of the degrees of
Yeah,
your Lagna.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
according to the degree of my Lagna, which are 6 degree, probably.
Are you sure we may have to check the degrees?
I think so. I think it's around 6 degrees.
Oh, that's impossible. Let's have a look.
That's why, I don't really understand. I remember that you mentioned something that you were not sure about the D9.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yes,
So
okay, but
what is it? It's Virgo. Okay, we'll come back. We'll visit it later. Okay.
yeah, it's just
Put it
because,
up in Telegram group. But listen, here it is. Basically, if you, I mean, this is, like I said, it's a good exercise in rectification. Okay. And this will help everyone because this gives a lot of clues as to where the Navamsha falls, the Navamsha Lagna. Okay. Now, notice a pattern here in all of this. Notice there is a definitive pattern here. If you see the Aries, if you see the Cancer, these are the Chara Rashis, the movable signs. If you see Capricorn, and what else is there? Libra. Yeah, Libra. If you see, the first degrees is always the same Navamsh, same sign. Can you see that? This is very important for you guys to understand that. Yeah, is everybody getting this? I have highlighted it, and the one in blue is basically for the if you can see, like for example, the fixed signs. Taurus is here, the middling degrees. Taurus is here. If you see Leo, it's again the middling degrees of your rising sign comes into Leo. And if you see Scorpio, again, the middling degrees, and the same with Aquarius. So the fixed signs have this whole middling theme going on, okay? Now, let's see the last one, which is the dual signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Here we see, wow, look at that. It's like unbelievable. You know, they are the last signs. Can everybody see that? Gemini is last is Gemini. For Virgo, last one is Virgo. And Pisces, the last one is Pisces, Navamsh. Yeah? Is everybody okay with this? So,
Yes.
what does it mean then? What it really means is that the first sign of Chara Rashis is going to be always in the first house. That is, for Aries, the first few degrees, the first 3.20 degrees is always going to be in its own sign for Chara Rashis, that is for movable. For fixed signs, which is what Taurus says. The ninth one, we begin. So um, the beginning will always be the ninth house, which is the ninth from it, from Taurus. And the fifth will be always its own sign. That is a fifth from Taurus, okay? Which is always the middle portion. That is, it maps into the fifth house. And similarly, well, dissimilarly, Gemini is nothing but the last portion. That means it is the ninth house. So Gemini, which is the dual signs, the Dvishwa Bhava Rashis, the dual signs always begin from the fifth house. Okay. And for the fixed signs, it begins from the ninth house. And for the movable signs, which is what the Aries is, the first one, will always belong to the first Navamsh, the first 3.2 degrees. Is everybody okay with this? Are you understanding it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's pretty easy. Yeah. It's not difficult at all to just remember that. So let's see an example. This is the queen. Now, what's her Navamsha? What's her Lagna? What degree is it we are talking about? 29? Do you want to, guys, can you
Yeah, her degree is 28, Sagittarius 35.
Yeah, lovely. So that maps into the last degree of Sagittarius. Now remember the rule. The last for Dvishwabhava Rashis, that is the dual signs, we always begin from Taurus. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, from the fifth house. So it will always begin, the mapping will begin from here. But because her degrees are, had she been like 0 degrees of Sagittarius, then it would have mapped, we would get Libra as her Lagna. But because it is the last degrees, 28 something degrees or 29, it's rounded off here, it will go into the last degrees of Sagittarius. And here it is, her Navamsh chart. That is her Navamsh chart. Can you see, everyone?
Mm.
Yeah, so it is. Can everybody switch off the radio? I can hear a radio, please. Sorry, guys. Who's mute? Can Aditi, yeah, can you guys mute yourself, please? Yeah, thank you. So is everybody getting this? This is quite simple, actually. Yeah. Is everyone okay with this? So you see, there is a we will take up some more examples, but this is similarly we do with all the planets, and that is how we derive the ninth harmonic, which is nothing but the Navamsh chart for all the planets. And that is how obviously the software will do it for you, but this is the logic behind this. Okay. Now, let's go to here, the concept of Vargottama. Now, Vargottama literally means the great division, the best division. It's basically Varga and Uttama. When you split up the word Vargottama, Varga plus Uttama. Uttama in Sanskrit literally means the best one, okay, the best. And Varga means the part or the section or the chart. So basically in our context it means it is the best division, the best point. Okay. Now here is a little thing that I'm giving you. Aries, as we already saw, the first one is maps into Aries. Taurus, the fifth from there, maps into Taurus. And for Gemini, the ninth house maps into, or the ninth or the last division is Gemini. Similarly, for Taurus, it is the fifth from Capricorn, so it is fifth. The middling degrees will map into Taurus. So can you see that? So that is nothing but termed as the best division. So for example, if you have, let's say, moon in Aries, okay, at 3 degrees, that means it is in Aries Navamsh. That means it is in Aries in Rashi chart, Aries in Navamsh chart. It's a very strong moon. You have the blessings of Lord Brahma. Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. That means you have a lot and lot of blessing coming in terms of action, in terms of the guna of rajas. That means you're always like wanting to know more, to do more, full of activity, full of wanting to go places. It's a very positive thing. Yeah, you're full of like wanting to start projects and things like that. And of course it will depend on where the moon lies, which bhava it occurs in, which who's the karaka of that, what is the moon doing. Maybe the moon is your lagna lord, and if it is the lagna lord, then the moon in Aries is in a very strong position. Yeah. So this is just an example I'm saying. Similarly, let's say you have Venus in Taurus, okay? And it lies not just in any of these in the Rashi chart, but for example, it is in this division. It is in between 13 degrees and 16 degrees, 40 minutes in, then in Navamsh, it will come into Taurus. That means it is in a Vargottama position. That is the terminology we use, that Venus is Vargottama. That means Venus is not just in its own sign in Rashi, but it is in Vargottama. It is in a fantastic position. Okay. And often, now here's the added kind of layer coming through. When we talk of these degrees, it is also in one of the nakshatra padas of Rohini. Rohini is beautiful nakshatra. It has this Vargottama position. That means the Venus is very strong. It loves to be, it's a tough position for Venus, as in tough, as in like the person who has it has got many, many, many blessings. So in a way, that's not tough as in like it's difficult, but it's tough as in the person is a tough person. They have a lot of blessings. They can bring in, they have a lot of strength to overcome a lot of negativity in their life. That's why I say it is a tough position, because that means they will be able to overcome a lot of obstacles in life when the Venus is in those degrees of Taurus and it's in Vargottama position. Is everybody understanding this? Yeah? because this is going to be like very fundamental. This concept of Vargottama is applicable only to the D9 chart. We do not see the Vargottama, then it is called something else. It's called Uttama positions in other Varga charts. But Vargottama is a very specific to the Navamsh chart. Yeah? Is any questions so far? Hello? No? Okay. So then we come to the Taurus. Now, what happens if you have, let's say, any planet or even Lagna in Vargottama position in these degrees, that means the fifth sign of the middle portion. That is, it's the fifth sign, because when we say Taurus, let's say you have Taurus Lagna. Let's say it's fifth from Capricorn. So if we go through all of these, it is in the middle portion degrees. That means for fixed signs, it is the middle portion becomes Vargottama. Okay. And then you have the blessings of Lord Vishnu. That means the qualities like Lord Vishnu, like purity that you seek, even in, like, let's say Venus, if you have in Taurus in these degrees, you will seek a lot of purity. You will seek a lot of, like, you won't be like, the kind of woman or a man who will kind of just go into a relationship willy-nilly, or just go for for a laugh and just treat relationships casually. No, you will be very specific. If you go into a relationship with someone, if you have a liaison with someone, then you will ensure that you want to marry that person. So that's why it says blessings of Lord Vishnu. This is very, 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 very pure. They will have those qualities of Lord Vishnu. Similarly, for the dual signs, let's say you have, like for example, we talked about the queen. She's got Lagna Vargottama, that is a huge blessing coming from Lord Shiva. What would Lord Shiva give as a blessing if he wanted to bless? He will give you the Mrutyunjay mantra. He will give you the power of longevity. And guess what? The queen is quite old. I think she's like 95, 96. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I think she's around that age. So she's having her birthday in a couple of days. So so you see, that is important, right? The powers that they come, it will give you great longevity, very, very strong character. And plus she's got Ketu. If we see Rahu and Ketu, if you notice, is also a Vargottama. That is absolutely a huge blessing. Totally huge, huge, big blessings. And I will go into the signification. I will my homework for you guys homework I'm going to give you is find out what planets in your chart or people who have got Vargottama positions. Find those positions, those planets, even if it's Lagna, that's fine. That's a huge blessing, as you can see. And come back and tell me, what does it mean, to have all the various planets Vargottama? Now I will give you a hint. For example, if you, like I told you, you have blessings if you have Lagna Vargottama, or for example, let's say you have blessings of Lord Shiva, but let's say you have Sun Vargottama. It's fantastic, because you not only have, and if it is in a Gemini or in Sagittarius, the last degrees of it, then that means you have got the kind of knowledge you're seeking. That kind of knowledge has been bestowed upon you by Lord Shiva, and so you just have to make use of that. Tap. It's like literally tapping into that reservoir. And once you are able to tap into that reservoir, all things will open up. So you already have the blessings, you may not even know it. And that is why I say that, have a look and see what blessings you have, what planet is Vargotama, they will have a very specific signification. Okay. And I already gave you an example of the queen, that her Lagna and Ketu is Vargotama. Rahu and Ketu, Vargotama means that you have the great ability to be able to transcend any kind of boundaries, any kind of limitations, go across. Now, we all know that her appeal, um, is worldwide. Everybody knows her. She's iconic. She's like one of the biggest crowd pullers in Britain today. There's no doubt about that. The royalty is there because of her and her sustenance of it. She sustained it for so long, like over like 50, 60, 70 years. So you see, that's a remarkable achievement. And she has lived that long because of her Vargotama Lagna and an exalted Ketu in that. Ketu exaltation will give you great numerical abilities, because Ketu is the blessings of Anant. She will be very, very intuitive. She will know what kind of decisions to make, huge intuitive abilities, like phenomenal intuition. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Sonal. How do we view debilitated Vargotama planet?
That's for your homework. Good question. Remember one thing: when Vargotama, the concept of Vargotama is those planets will come to manifest. Because they are activating your crown chakra. They are there in your persona. So, for example, let's say if you have Rahu Vargotama, that means it's like you are in your, it's on your ascendant, it's on your head for everybody to see it. Nobody can, it's not hidden away in some house. It's there for the world to see it, and so it's a very, very a good position. Now, if it is debilitated, that means no matter what happens, everybody will be able to see things, no matter how it is. Now, of course, with debilitation, it has its own karma, right? The whole thing about debilitation is that where you goofed up, and where you made mistakes, and basically there has been a misuse or an abuse of that particular bhava it rules. And so this lifetime you have to kind of like, hey, repair, and you may not get full what do you call, the full benefit of that particular bhava. And of course it also depends whether the debilitation is getting cancelled. If it is getting cancelled, then it's a very positive thing, really. But if Rahu, let's say, is in the Kendras, or if Rahu is in a Trikona, then it's very positive, because we want a malefic, which is in a debilitation, to be in either in a Kendra or a Kona, But of course, it's end of the day, it is malefic and it is debilitated, but you would rather have it debilitated in one of those houses rather than debilitated in, let's say, the 6th house or the 8th house. Yeah. Does that help you?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's see Dalai Lama's chart. Okay. Can everybody see his chart? Does anybody want to take a kind of figure out what's going on with his chart? Do you want to take a stab at it?
So you take the Lagna 15 degrees Gemini.
Yeah.
So is a dual.
Yes. So if we
So
see, let's say, let me take it back to, yeah, let's say 15 degrees dual. So where is it in here?
not dual goes, the dual sign, does it go at the end?
No,
No. So it's what I,
Gemini, it's middling degrees. So what is the Navamsha going to be? Aquarius, can you?
Aquarius. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, Aquarius. Yeah.
So what do we learn? So his
Aquarius.
Navamsha is Aquarius. His Navamsha
Yeah.
is Aquarius. Yeah. So what does that mean? Where does it fall in the chart here? You know, that is the first thing we are going to see, that where does Aquarius fall in his Rashi chart?
9th house.
Yes, absolutely. The 9th house. Is that a good bhava or not a good bhava? We will come to that. Now, those
Yeah,
are the,
good Baba.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that is what we are going to judge. This is, Navamsha is like a big topic. We are going to do some more next week too. So now,
May I ask you something,
yes, go
clarification?
on, go
Because
on.
probably I got confused regarding the Navansha.
Yeah.
So if, for example, if I have like a dual sign, a Pisces Lagna,
Yeah.
and the initial part, so for Pisces dual sign, if it's like the first part of degree, if you can please, Sonal, go back to the chart with the
Okay.
degrees. So if, for example, a Pisces Lagna born at 3 degrees,
Okay. 3
because it's a
degrees.
dual sign, would it be the first part? I don't see the first part of
Pisces is here. No, don't get yourself confused.
yeah.
It's very simple. Just read the degrees and look for the signs here, your Lagna Rashi. Okay. So here it will fall in Cancer,
In
Navamsh.
Cancer
Okay.
Navansha. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's only the last degrees. Vargottama we are talking about. It's only the last degrees for dual signs.
Now I have clear.
Yeah.
No, you know what? Now I have clear this. You're
Yeah,
talking about the
see,
Vargotam.
see here, I've made it very clear here. Where did my
Yeah,
slide go? Yeah, there we go. The Vargottama is the first sign for the Chara Rashi,
Yeah.
and it is the middle portion for the fixed signs, and the last one for the dual signs. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
principle is very, very simple. Yeah. Do you get it?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we are going to come back to Dalai Lama's chart, because after we study a few of the principles of what we are going to look for, okay? The first step we look for is Rashi Tulya Amsha. We transpose the planets and the Lagna to the Rashi chart and see what is getting activated, which houses. That's the step one, okay? Then we check to see the planets, which house again, and signs in D9 from Lagna, from Rashi. So both ways we are going to see them. And then there's another kind of way we look at things, okay? Treat the divisional Lagna, that is the D9 Lagna, as the Karaka Bhava. That means as if it is a kind of like a bhava in itself. You know, we treat it as a temporary Lagna, okay? So for example, whatever the whatever the lagna of yours, we treat the Navamsha Lagna, we treat it as a bhava, and treat it as like a temporary Lagna. And then we see the and so that bhava, that Navamsha Lagna for you will become like an auxiliary, like an extra 9th house. Do you understand? So because we are literally looking at the 9th house, dividing up the 9th house for all the signs, dissecting it into 9 different portions and seeing it. So literally, when we get the Navamsha Lagna, it acts as if it is a kind of a ninth house, so that we can understand what are the karmas, what are our abilities, and so on and so forth. That is why we treat it as if it's like a ninth house of Bhagya, like an extra ninth house. Okay. And then we take the D9 Lagna, that is the ninth house, that is nothing but like the Navamsha Lagna, as the ninth house, and give it like the ninth house treatment. And so the fifth house from the ninth house will be nothing but the D1 Lagna. Okay, so it's, don't get too overwhelmed by the concept of this. It's Bhavat Bhavam. So literally all I'm saying is that if you treat the Navamsha Lagna as your own Lagna, as if it's like the ninth house, sorry, not own Lagna, but as if it is your ninth house. So fifth from your ninth house in the Rashi chart will be your Lagna, nothing but your Lagna, right? And so that is how, and the fifth from the Navamsha Lagna is nothing but the fifth house, and that becomes your kind of your Lagna. So that is how we treat it as that is the treatment we are kind of looking for. Okay, now there's also another element to it. Okay, when we treat it as let's say, this is one of the sutras from Jaimini, Dharma Moksha. So what that literally means is that he has given this sutra saying, if the Navamsha Lagna is placed, for example, in the 11th house from your Rashi Lagna, then the native will attain moksha. So now what does that mean in will attain moksha? What is all this? What's going on? We don't understand what is all this. So it's very simple. Okay, take your D9 Lagna. Okay, now if it is in the 11th house, okay, in the Rashi chart, that means, let's take an example here. Okay, this is Ramakrishna Paramahansa's Lagna. Okay, here, this is his Lagna. Is everybody seeing this? If we look at his Lagna, it is in Aquarius, and it is in the middling degrees of Aquarius, not middling, but the first 10 degrees ish of Aquarius. Okay, and it goes into his the Sagittarius Navamsh. So if all we have to do is take the Sagittarius sign and bring it back into the D9 chart. And what do we get in the D9? Oh, wow. Where is it falling in his D9? It's in his 11th house. Can everybody understand this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's in his 11th, it's activating his 11th house. 11th house of gains. Hang on a minute. How does that work? 11th house of gains. But he was highly spiritual. He was a renunciate. He had given up everything in his life. And how this doesn't make sense? But yes, it 100% does. Because what we are seeing for the highest achievement is nothing but, let's say, the fifth house of consciousness, which is the D1. So if we count fifth house from there, we get the third house. And the third house is nothing but the Guru Upadesha, because the person is forever thinking, oh, my Guru said this, my Guru said this, I should follow it. I remember my Guru saying, giving me this particular mantra. Oh, wow, my Guru mentioned these scriptures. So the person's consciousness is constantly to do in the third house of Guru Upadesha. So that's how his consciousness is going. Yeah. Now, there's a third one. Where does his karma lie? His karma lies in the 12th house. That's why Maharishi Jaimini is right. He's giving the sutra Dharma Moksha. That means if the Navamsha Lagna is placed in the 11th house from Rashi Lagna, the native will pursue moksha or liberation, because the second house from the 11th is nothing but the 12th house from Lagna. 12th house is where we give up everything. We are moving towards complete renunciation. 12th house is completely giving up all things. So it's very simple, you see. Is everybody clear on this?
Yeah.
Yeah? So
Mhm.
now you may well ask, but that means his biggest karma and his biggest achievement was his spiritual liberation, and it was his spiritual guidance on how to attain liberation for everyone. That was his big legacy he left behind. So that means we are coming to the conclusion that second house from wherever your Navamsh falls in the Rashi chart and in the Navamsha Lagna, are going to be where your big consciousness, your karma lies. You are seeking that. You want that. You want to manifest it this lifetime. And you may well say, well, why the second house? What's the big deal? Why? What is the logic? The logic is very simple. If you look at the consciousness, like, we went through the third house because it is the fifth house from the 11th house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the fifth house, which is a Guru Upadesha. Now, the ultimate aim of the fifth house is achievement. We want the achievement, right? So if we treat this as a Lagna, we get and count the 10th house, because that is the ultimate we want. It is the highest kendra of our achievements in life, what we are born to do. We come to the 12th house, and that is why, which is nothing but the second from the Navamsha Lagna, which is Capricorn for him, because in his Navamsh chart, if you see here, it is Sagittarius, and the second house is Capricorn. And even here, the second house is Capricorn, which is nothing but his house of ultimate achievements. Okay? Is everybody clear on that?
Yes.
So always, that is the other cardinal rule. The second house in Navamsh, and you bring it to your Rashi chart, becomes where your biggest karma this lifetime lies. You have to achieve it, otherwise you cannot get out of this earth. You are meant to pursue that. Now, whether it is moksha or whether it is occult, so if you have, let's say, Navamsha Lagna, 7th from your Navamsha Lagna, let's say it is in your 7th house. So second from there will be the 8th house. That means you're meant to do 8th house activity. Maybe you're buying and lending. Maybe you are, working with in a bank with other people's resources, which is the 8th house activity. Maybe you're studying Jyotish. Maybe you're studying, sort of like Tantra and all the hidden occult sciences. That is also 8th house activities. So you are meant to pursue that this lifetime. That is your very clear-cut karma cut out for you this lifetime. You have to do it. Is everybody okay with this?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So my homework for everyone is find your Navamsha Lagna. Okay. Look for where it is in your Rashi chart. Tell me how that resonates with you, what it is activating, and tell me second from there, what is your path? Okay.
Okay.
Is that everybody okay with this?
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut it short because this is a very I'm not saying it's complicated, but it is, we will take it in little baby steps here. Okay. I also would like to know what the signification of Vargotama means for other planets. Okay. Please find that and put it in the Telegram group. I would love to hear all of your, don't worry about like, oh my God, I just want to know what is your karma, which house karmically is getting activated for you. Because once you're able to see it in your own chart, you can easily see it in everybody else's chart. Yeah. You see, it's such a fantastic tool for it. Yeah. To figure out karma. Yeah. Margarita, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sona.
Okay,
Thank you.
lovely. And
Bye.
tonight, yeah, we are having the lodge is having classes. Let me